Hello, and welcome to Required Reading, the podcast that revisits the most impactful books from our childhood. I'm your host, Erin Bowles. I'm a writer, actor, and comedian. And today, returning for her fourth visit, which I think makes you the most recurring guest, it's
Wow,
Madeline North.
I'm
Hello.
honored. Thank you so much.
The Princess Bride, Aragorn, Jane Eyre, and now here we are with The Odyssey.
Yep.
The film comes out, we're recording this on Sunday, film comes out on Friday. This is probably going to come out tomorrow. I don't remember if I reached out to you for this or I just said, I'm going to do the Odyssey. Who wants to do it?
I don't remember. I think we might have had a conversation before,
Yeah.
previously about the upcoming film, and then had because I think you asked me, but I feel like we had a conversation before
Yeah.
about it.
I
Yeah.
feel like I might have asked you in like February to
It's
do
been a
this.
while.
And here we are. But yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this. What is your story with the Odyssey, one of the oldest stories in the world?
I think it's probably very similar to that of Jane Eyre. I've apparently been on this podcast so many times that I'm sure I've repeated this before.
Do it
But
anyway.
this is one of the books that was like within my homeschool curriculum at the time. My dad was an English teacher. So this is like very much the Iliad and the Odyssey, like big deal.
Yeah.
First, like real epic. And the first dive into really any sort of like mythology and like
Mm,
yeah, anything like reaching to that stage, because I didn't really read a lot of fantasy and like didn't
really?
get into like things like that early on, and this was kind of like pushed to the edge of that. So yeah, I think I probably read the Iliad and the Odyssey probably when I was like 11 and 12, and completely went over my head, I'm sure. like but it was part of the curriculum. That was what I did, and yeah.
Wow. But that's so surprising to me that you say you like weren't a fantasy kid because that's a genre I so associate you with.
Well, I was totally like a fantasy kid, but as far as reading,
Mm,
like my dad wasn't big on fantasy, so we like I think we've talked about before. I have never read The Lord of the Rings, like any like fantasy classics.
right.
I didn't do what's it called, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, like that series. I didn't do
Mm,
any of those. We did dive into more like Greek and Roman mythology and things like
right.
that, and then a little bit more broad later on as I got older and just started doing like more of my own, like choosing my own reading.
Yeah.
um, but I mean, I did read, like, I read the Harry Potters and things
Mhm.
like that. But as far as like bigger epics, I guess,
Yeah.
and like big fantasy mythology, whatever you want to class this
Yeah.
as, historical, anything.
I mean, epic is the word for it,
Yeah.
and I really truly with the discourse around the movie, I must say like guys, there are sea monsters in this. We always must remember that. Like this is a fantasy certainly, but I do feel like everyone sort of in our demographic of young women who read a lot, I do feel like everyone sort of has a Greek myth that they really
Yeah.
attach to. I didn't
Yeah,
really attach to
for
one
sure.
until college, but what is yours?
Mine probably, well, I think I'd be lying if I said it was anything aside from Achilles.
Mm,
That is definitely more recent. I always preferred the Iliad over the Odyssey. So I've read
oh,
the Iliad two or three times. But this was not only my second time reading the Odyssey.
really?
So I had always just gone back and preferred that one. I don't know, it feels more like more action packed, more
Definitely. Yeah.
like I always thought that, oh, the Odyssey, like I don't really care about this guy. It's kind of boring, like like. But Achilles' story, and then it really stuck out to me when I was younger, and when I did initially read the Iliad, and then I read what's it called? The Song of Achilles.
Not the Song of Achilles. Yes, the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Yes. The tome of all tomes.
Yes. I love all retellings, but pretty much any like Achilles retelling that I can get my hands on. And I know it's not necessarily the most accurate, but I really love the Song of Achilles. So
I think it's like, for if you don't know the Song of Achilles, it came out, must have been like pre-2015.
It was
Maybe 2011-ish. I know I was reading.
It was like really, I think 2011 is right. I'll look it up.
Yeah, because I was reading the paperback in 2015 when it was the summer between high school and college. And I mean, gorgeous prose, it's queer. I think the Song of Achilles is like the starting point for a lot of like sapphic women to get back into reading as an adult. Yeah. It's a really like special cultural touchstone.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes these big epics that are very intimidating and dense and a little dull. It romanticizes them in a way that I feel like history and people sort of like put these books on pedestals and try and make them inaccessible. And it's partially in the way that they're written and just in the nature of being an epic. There's so much that you do have to pack into that. But I think breaking it down and really diving into the individual story and the romanticism of it, that meant a lot to me when I read it, which I think was, I think I read it in 2016.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I read Madeline Miller's Circe a while ago. I don't remember it super well. And Circe, of course, is a character that shows up in the Odyssey. But I listened to so many audiobooks of Greek myth, not like... I feel weird calling them retellings, even though that is what it is, because retelling to me sounds like, oh, you're putting it in the 21st century or something like that, which I never want. But I do like when... like in Song of Achilles, like with Circe, it's like, let's take this one small character or moment or chapter or piece and really dive into it and make it bigger and sort of make a meal out of it. Because I think that there are hurdles with me to sort of Greek epic poetry, and I think that resolves a lot of the hurdles. I did the Iliad episode a month or two ago with my friend Xana Shore, and I was staying with them recently, and they were like, yeah, it sounded like you didn't like the Iliad. I was like, no. But yeah, I think that's because here's the thing, and I feel like the biggest dolt of dolts. This is Sunday afternoon. Thursday night, I started listening to the audiobook of the Odyssey, and I was like, duh. Obviously, it kills as an audiobook. It is an oral tradition. Of course. Yes. Of course, hearing it is way better than reading it. It was such a light bulb moment, I think, similar to why kids struggle with Shakespeare in class. But I've listened to so many of those books that really take on a single moment, because like you said, the Iliad is so much action, and a lot of the Odyssey, even though it is so episodic, it is a lot of everyone sitting at a table talking about something,
talking about what happened, explaining, and it's okay, but rather than in the, so there's often exactly. Yeah, because there's a structural thing where the Iliad sort of moves from point A to point B, where the Odyssey is a lot of flashbacks. I'm not even quite sure the timeline on Telemachus, Odysseus' son. During this I'm like, do I have to explain the plot of the Odyssey? Is this a necessary thing? Odysseus is a guy, fights in the Trojan War. It takes a long time to get home. That's it. Pretty much. I mean,
experiences troubles and treacherous tasks. But it is you set up with Telemachus, and then it's Odysseus, and he tells a story from his past, and then you go back to Telemachus, and it's not a straight narrative, which I think can be frustrating. And then I was doing some reading, and it's well, that actually builds a lot of tension in that you are watching Telemachus in this very shortened kind of time span. Yeah, but it is Odysseus will be like, oh, life is so hard and I've been so miserable. And then 3 years pass. And it's like, wait a minute. You're like, you don't feel that length of time, I think, as much.
I also think that like in the narrative, like where it's sort of him recanting and arriving at a place, explaining his story, and that's sort of what the chapter or book, as they're called, is. The fact that a lot of them are lies, like Odysseus the liar,
God,
also makes it really interesting, because it's like, why, to me, like in a modern setting, I'm like, why go through all that? Like, just don't say, like, why are you making up all of these stories?
Yes, because I was like, also, why are you wasting my time? Like, this isn't going to be important as a reader. As you were saying.
But it is interesting, and I think it adds to the level of like, well, what is true? Like, what like of his story, that the parts that are presented as quote unquote facts to us, the reader, that like, is it actually fact, or are we also being lied to?
Yeah, I think I was flipping through my notes the other day, and there's a moment where Odysseus is disguised telling a story about himself. And he says something like, oh, and Odysseus, the most beautiful and gorgeous of all of us. No one's ever seen a man as beautiful as this guy Odysseus.
He's so centered. Like, he does that. Like, calm down, man, sir.
Exactly. There's like, and there are moments like, I'm sure that is meant to be funny. Like, that, absolutely. But there are moments where I'm like, this feels really funny and strange to me, and I don't know if it's supposed to. Like, there is one moment where he washes up on sea and meets a young woman, and the lie that he comes up with is like, well, I just murdered someone, so I need help. What a way to start.
Yeah, that's the woman with her slave girls, right? When he's naked.
I think so. Or is that Nausicaa, maybe? It's near the, like, it's definitely in the second half of the book. It's near the end.
He's like, I didn't want to scare, if I'm thinking of the same one, he's like, I don't want to scare her. I don't want to make her, like, nervous. And then that's what he comes up with.
Exactly. Except, like, so much, I think the question that I keep coming back to is, like, why does the story persist? Because even when Homer was writing it down, if a single entity such as Homer ever existed, this was an ancient story already. Yeah. So, like, what is the thing? I mean, it's got these great set pieces, which is why I'm excited to see the movie, is to see, like, 2026 CG take on Scylla and Charybdis and these gigantic sea monsters. But... yeah, I don't know. I'm also so like, God, there's just like, even with I think the movie is going to be like 2.5 hours. I think I am like, that's not a lot of time for all this stuff. That's not a lot of time.
No, because I feel like even like the most iconic parts, like even Circe's Island, even Calypso, even like all of the most iconic parts still kind of felt glossed over.
Exactly.
Because it's not really that long. Like, everyone again thinks of it as like this big, like, intimidating, inaccessible tome. But I mean, it's not actually that long.
No, like, and there is a lot of scene setting on things that to me feel completely unimportant. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care about all of the gold that they're given and all of the tripods. Because with the Iliad, I could justify that to myself, because it's like, it's not, the riches and the gold. It's this guy dies, and this is where he was from, and his dad, and this guy dies, and this is his backstory. And that felt very purposeful. And this does not, to me.
Well, and the deaths of Odysseus's men are inconsequential.
Absolutely.
Which is a very big jump to me from the Iliad. Like you said, like, it's like, okay, this is important because this happened and this causes this effect, right? But the Odyssey, he just, he doesn't really care. Like, it doesn't really seem to affect him or his journey or anything. Like, he's just like, okay, now we're down to 1 boat. Now we're down to 10 men or however many.
Exactly. I come away with this with so many questions of, like, I think it is impressive that these, like, two works that are obviously connected are so radically different in scope. One is about an entire war so many armies and the other is about one guy. I think that is interesting and impressive. But it is like, I have so many questions of like, amongst all of these people, why is it Odysseus? You know, of all of these people, when the gods finally say, like, let's let him get out of Calypso, has he really earned that? Why does it happen at that moment? They always say he's the favorite of the gods. I don't know about that. Doesn't really seem like that to me.
He's described both as the favorite of the gods, but he's also described as being hated by the gods because of how much misfortune he's fallen into, which I think is an interesting juxtaposition, because depending on how you look at it, both are true.
Yeah, it really like depends on the god. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like sort of what you said of like the big tent pole moments do seem very glossed over. It feels so odd because it feels like this is a text where all of the adaptations will feel better almost than the original.
It's because taking this and putting it into an adaptation requires cutting down and cutting out the fat and the excess and keeping the most interesting parts and the most iconic parts. But also with that, you also need to flesh it out a little bit more because it's in a different format. It's on a screen. You have to give the women lines, hopefully. Like, you know, you have to like cut it down, but also add to it. And I just think that there's too much and also not enough in this book, which is really strange.
Yeah. It's like I keep coming to that question of like why of this one? And I like it is the annoying contrarian in myself, but I am like, well, Gilgamesh is older. Why aren't we talking about Gilgamesh up in here, which I have not read. But it's like oops. but like I read this in 10th grade. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
Which version did you read?
I read the version that I found for free in a little free library, which is, I thought about getting the Real Penguin Classics. This is Evie Rieu, R-I-E-U. What about you?
Okay.
I need the Emily Wilson one, of course.
Well, and when you switched the audiobook, did you stay in that same translation?
No, which was really, there were a bunch of ones that were like on hold or something, and this was the one that was immediately available. And that was so interesting already, of like listening to it and being like, how do they word it in the other one? Yeah.
So I read the Emily Wilson one, which I was so excited about. And especially because of the movie coming out, which is based on her translation. So I thought it'd be interesting. One, because I've wanted to read her versions since they came out a couple years ago. Yeah. I think it's been a couple of years at this point.
I think so.
But it was really interesting because it was not as like blunt as I expected, considering the amount of discourse that people assign to her translations. And it wasn't like overtly feminist. Like, she didn't fluff up the female characters the way that people like, not that I expected her to, not that I believed any of the the stuff that all of the red pillars say online, but like it just was felt very honest, and it felt more direct, and it felt less it felt less inaccessible, but not to the sense that it like felt dumbed down. So I thought it was really interesting. And her, if you want to borrow it, I think it'd be interesting because her translator's note is like this.
Dang,
thick.
That's like at least 50 pages, bare minimum.
It is, it's 100 pages. For the introduction, hold on, that's just the introduction. And then the translator's note, because I switched back and forth and I mostly did the audiobook as well. And I just remember that the introduction and the translator's note were like 2.5 hours.
Dang.
Like, it was crazy.
That's a whole movie.
I was like, is this, can I get to the book yet? But it was really interesting, and her whole thing is about how all of the previous translators have basically fluffed it up and made it seem like this like prestigious, which it was, but it was also normal and modern for its time. So by adding this level of like over sophistication, it was still kind of like the common man's story. It wasn't
Exactly.
anything that was inaccessible at the time. So by these other translators like adding to that, they're actually being less faithful to the text.
I love that. Yeah.
And the fact that the version of English that most of these translators use is still only like two generations older than us. Like it
Mm.
is not closer to the ancient Greek
No.
in any form. Like it's not
Yeah.
actually more accurate.
Hmm.
Um, it just feels that way. But making
Yeah.
it feel that way also again makes it inaccessible and it makes it this intimidating thing, which I just think is really interesting. Like the idea that the book itself is a myth, like
Mhm.
mythological, you know,
Yeah.
between this idea of like building it up to be this thing that it's not,
Hmm.
right? It's not actually that big.
No,
It's not that
that's
big.
true. That's
Like the
true.
margins are huge. It's not crazy,
Yeah.
you know, and it doesn't actually have to be as complicated as people make it out to be. In addition to all of the theories about who Homer was and whether or not it was
Yeah.
one person, etc. So that to me is always interesting to think about. But I was curious as to which translation you read.
Yeah, I definitely want to get my hands on Emily Wilson's. This is rare for there it is rare that I am really precious about books, about like not wanting to highlight them. I always want to highlight stuff, but
Yeah.
somehow in my mind I'm like, no, that's the special one. You can't beat up that one. But I think I'll get over that. Because I do I really like mine is in prose versus instead of in verse, but it
Mm-hmm.
is I think this is a valuable one to like have multiple copies of
Yeah.
because you can interpret things differently. Yeah.
Yeah. I have multiple other translations and I can't pick them out and read them because they're buried under a stack and I'm not going to pull them out.
No, valid.
Um, but I remember, I'm pretty sure the first one I read was the Robert Fagel
Hmm.
translation. I feel like that's most likely the one that I read when I first read it. And then probably at least the second reread. And yeah, it always felt like it was more classical,
Mm. Yeah.
which it is and it isn't, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, because with Shakespeare, we can keep the original how it is, and it feels romantic and elaborate because it is actually the
Yeah.
words that he wrote. But if he was like being translated into another language, would they also fluff it up or would they modernize it or like
Hmm.
how do you do that? And I think the work of a translator is really interesting. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up Shakespeare because it is that classic thing of like we elevate Shakespeare in our minds when Shakespeare was writing for the people, writing for people who
Yeah.
were illiterate and the
Yeah.
masses. And this is the exact same thing. This is like writing to be accessible to everyone. You know, this is a written version of a centuries old oral tradition of gather around the campfire. So, yeah, it is that problem again and again of like, this actually is very accessible, but we have sort of tried to lift.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's so much human patting ourselves on the back that
Yeah.
gets in the way of
Yeah.
everything. Yeah,
It's like the pretension of like, oh, like you want to be better and proud and like
exactly.
I was able to do this. And it starts really early, like
Hmm.
it starts when you're like in going into high school and you're like, "Oh my God, I don't want to read those books. They're so scary.
Yeah.
Those books are huge. They're difficult." And not everyone does it. Not everyone has a chance
Yeah.
to do it and have it be in a good environment that makes like people understand that it's not actually that bad. It's actually fine.
Yeah.
Like it's very interesting.
Yeah. I was at a party this morning and I was driving home and I was like, actually, hold up. What the heck happens to Telemachus after all this? Like, I think so much of the story is because when I was in film school, the protagonist is the person who changes, right? And Odysseus's external world obviously changes so much, but when he gets home, his circumstances have changed. Has he changed? Has he learned something?
Well, it's interesting because he is like the sort of blueprint for a lot of people, or people say that he's like the blueprint for the hero's journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't, I mean, he doesn't really change. Like he's still, until his like last breath,
Yeah.
he's still lying, he's still deceiving, he's still, he becomes, I guess, more vengeful the longer he goes on. I don't know if that's necessarily like an arc.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like he doesn't seem to fight that hard for things. Like he kind of he is deceiving, and he does wile his way in and out of situations.
Yeah.
But he could also have very easily strong-armed his way out of situations. He could have tried harder. He was with Calypso for how many years?
7 years.
He he was also described as being happy for the first few years as well,
Mm-hmm.
I believe. And it wasn't until he got bored that he was then like, okay, I'll go back to my wife. But he didn't like.
Yeah. Well, and I think so
it's
much
like
of it
you
is
said,
like
what's that moment? Like, why is it that moment? Because
exactly.
he wasn't striving necessarily for it. He might have been like longing for it, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But why is it that moment that
Yeah.
the gods choose to
Exactly, because the gods choose it. It is not him. He's just sitting on the beach, and it is Athena's choice. And then Calypso sets him free because she has been told to. And with Calypso, it like again, I think it comes down to a lot of like the translation and how they present it and the translator's own internalized prejudices and things like that. But also the text does contradict itself. I mean, like you were saying, he's referred to as a favorite of the gods and like most despised of the gods. There's even there are conflicting prophecies about like Odysseus, you will die like peacefully in old age, and someone says you'll like die by the sea or be killed by the sea. Because all of this to say, I was thinking, well, if Odysseus doesn't really change, and maybe he doesn't change because he's kind of already perfect. We hear, like at least in this vision, right?
Yeah.
Because, not to me, but God no. but like he's so smart. That's all anyone wants to tell us. So obviously that was very culturally important. But like, does he have a flaw? Like, I feel like we talk about, like, Greek tragedy, and it is a fatal flaw. And obviously that's theater, and this is epic poems and oral tradition. Yeah. But it's like, So with him, I was like, okay, then maybe Telemachus is the one who changes. It's definitely a coming-of-age story for him, stepping into manhood. He's going to all of his father's, comrades, and they're saying, like, I hope you grow up to be as good as him. You look like him. You've got this story about Agamemnon is like a template, which I definitely want to come back to. Telemachus, there's a tiny little epilogue that you can find about Telemachus where he marries Circe. He marries Circe.
I am unfamiliar, which is wild. Wow.
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
So Circe, from the time that Odysseus is with her, she gets pregnant and has a son named like Telegonus. Telegonus or something. He goes, and it's very like Oedipal. He and Odysseus, not knowing who the other person is, fight, and then this son of Circe kills Odysseus, which again is this conflict of like, that's not dying of old age. So then this son of Circe goes to Telemachus and Penelope and is like, let me take you back to Circe. Circe marries Telemachus. Penelope marries Odysseus and Circe's son, and then Circe makes everyone immortal, and that's all I can find.
Oh.
What?
I'm gonna pretend that doesn't exist.
That's valid.
I don't like anything that you just said, to be honest.
Yeah. To me, it's like, so what was this all for?
Wait,
what is this all for?
So do you think that Telemachus changed? Do you think he had an arc?
Definitely more than Odysseus does, but like I think a huge part of being a protagonist and having an arc is that you have to be challenged, not only in sort of external circumstances, challenged in getting what you want, but also challenged as in your view of yourself or some deeply held belief. There has to be that sort of looking in the mirror moment. And I think with Telemachus, he goes from boy to man and he steps in, but he's not the one who says, hey, all of these suitors, get out. He is not leading that charge, really. That's Odysseus.
No, I don't think that he makes a single decision, though. Like,
That's a good point.
because he only leaves to go find out about his dad because Athena tells him to.
Mm-hmm.
He only returns because Athena tells him to.
Yes.
And even at the very end, there is a moment where Odysseus has slaughtered all the suitors. They're there, they're happy, and then someone goes, oh, but if you kill one man, the entire city will, like, chase you out. Like, that's so disrespectful, and we just killed a whole house of suitors. And Telemachus goes, well, I think Odysseus said that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he asked, I'm trying to remember, I feel like he asked Telemachus, what should we do?
Yeah.
And Telemachus says, I don't know, I'll follow you, I'll do whatever you want, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wouldn't know what to do in that situation. Yeah. But also, I thought it was really interesting that, one, that Odysseus, like, tried to have this moment, I think, with his son that was rejected in this very strange way that didn't allow for any, it's almost like he reverted back. So he went from boy to man, but it's almost like he reverted back because he finally had his father figure. So I can't say that he did change. But
Well, and that's so frustrating because, like, I something that I am excited about in the movie and that I do think Tom Spider-Man Holland?
Yeah, Holland. Yeah.
Tom Spider-Man will be very good at is that, like, this poor boy longing to know his father who has grown up in this massive shadow and this other shadow of uncertainty. And I think something that's really frustrating to me as, like, a reader or a listener, but would be beautiful, something beautiful to sink your teeth into in an adaptation, is that reunion where Odysseus is like, I'm your dad, no time to talk about it. Let's go on to the next thing. Yeah. And I like that is a thing that I know Tom Holland could do wonderfully.
I agree.
But you're so right of, like, it's frustrating because he is, like, about to step into this. He is leading, he's going to all of these other places but it is, again, Athena's insistence. And this is something that frustrates me so much about Greek mythology. I talked about it in my Iliad episode. With the incredible amount of the gods and divine intervention and gods masquerading as other specific people, like, what is the role of personal character? Does it exist at all? Because Athena says, go get all of these men together to go sail. And she also says, like, well, I'll take care of it. And then she goes and just makes them automatically in their mind sign on. Mm-hmm. So that's not saying anything about Telemachus as a leader. She pretends to be other people. So then in my mind, I'm like, well, then you're, like, creating a reputation for, like, mentor or other people that is now changing their personal character. I think there are moments in the Iliad where it's like Hector doesn't want to do this thing and then a god makes him do it. Mm-hmm. So I think that is so frustrating to me of, like, then does any of it matter? Like, I think that is infuriating as, like, a Greek person if I were to exist then. Yeah.
I think that is, not to, like, backtrack a little bit,
no.
I feel like maybe that is one of the reasons why I love retellings so much and, like, different takes, because a lot of the times you get more of an insight from the gods and you get more of, like, the gods as not only the gods as people, but as the people and the humans as people, versus these stories are presented as the people's story, but really it's almost like it should be the god's story and the people, because the people are just characters on a board. They're just playthings. Like, they don't have agency. And so, again, too much and not enough. Like, you have too much of the gods' interference, Athena mostly, because she's the one making all of these decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But you also don't get, really, aside from, I think, right in the very beginning, Athena is speaking to Zeus, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you get that. But the main person that wants to keep Odysseus from going home is Poseidon.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get any of the clash between Athena and Poseidon, or Zeus and Poseidon, or any of like the stuff that would be meaty and interesting to a
Mm-hmm.
story, right? And I feel like retellings and different takes, I agree, I don't necessarily love the word retellings,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's just kind of like zooming in on a specific thing.
Yeah.
I feel like, uh,
Yeah,
um,
there's like not a better. It's
there's
almost
not a
like
better term.
elaborations. Yeah,
Yeah.
we haven't come up to with it yet. Yeah.
Um, but I feel like that's why I love them so much, is because these original texts don't give you enough of that. And it is like this weird, like, in between
Yeah.
of not enough of the people and not enough of the gods, because they, like you said, like, they don't they're just pawns. They have no agency.
Yeah.
They're just doing anything. Like, they're doing whatever the gods tell them to.
Exactly. I think one of my favorites that I have read is not necessarily even about like that book in particular, but I read a recent, maybe 3 years ago, novel about Clytemnestra, who is I don't think appears like on screen in the slightest here, but is referenced all the time because Agamemnon comes home, Clytemnestra, his wife, has taken up with another man, and they scheme together to kill Agamemnon, and her son Orestes then kills her and the lover boy. And that is like, Telemachus, this is what you need to be. Like, this is the frame for it. And I was reading something the other day that was like, Clytemnestra is the second most loathed woman in Greek mythology, second only to Medea. And I was like, well, Medea is the one that I take very personally, and the one that I really love.
Wow.
Something that also blows my mind in the discussion of Clytemnestra, because I don't think it's in this book, or in the Odyssey. And so I had to go back and check, like, did this author for this one novel make this up? And she didn't.
Right.
When Agamemnon leaves, he kills their daughter. He
Yeah.
murders their daughter, Iphigenia.
Yeah, I do think it's like very briefly, like like 2 or 3 words, depending on the
Exactly.
translation, I guess. But like, it is very briefly glazed over in the recounting, and it is like you said, like, I don't think it's like on screen, but someone's saying something about how Odysseus is saying he doesn't want to be murdered when he
Yeah.
comes home the way that Agamemnon had.
Yeah. And so, like, but all of that is like, well, that's a fascinating situation and character of Clytemnestra, because immediately you start imagining, like, well, she's, for the whole Trojan War, has been effectively, like, ruling this city, has more or less assumed that her husband has died, has had this awful grudge for 10 years that he has murdered
Festering.
their daughter, like, of all of what she did, of course. And one thing I am really interested and intrigued by is that Lupita Nyong'o is playing both Clytemnestra and Helen, who are sisters.
Oh, is she?
I believe so.
I think I missed that. I only knew the Helen part. That's interesting. There are multiple people that are playing more than one role in this movie, which I am interested to
Exactly.
see.
It's like, I don't know
how and why that's happening.
The thing that got me into Medea, I was in college. I'm an actor. I didn't go to school for acting. I was in the writing program, and we had to take one acting class. And we read Medea, Euripides, and there's National Theatre in the UK has like filmed a bunch of their shows, and they have a streaming service. So we watched Medea starring Helen McCrory with Michaela Cole. And it rewired my brain, like some of the best acting you will ever see. And I had just gone through my first breakup, and all of these, like, 18-year-olds are like, why is she so mean? Why is she doing this? About Medea. And I'm like, I get it. She's right. I get every
girl.
single thing she's doing.
Absolutely.
Like, again, like, I think Clytemnestra is just so much more interesting than Odysseus. Like,
Yeah, and I think that's something that A lot of the retellings that I read are focused on female
Yeah.
characters and diving into that. And I think the Odyssey is maybe a bad example of,
Hmm.
oh, women characters don't have enough like depth in their story, because I don't think anyone has enough depth in their story. And this, like, I'm just like
I think you're
it's
right.
not necessarily that I think that Penelope and Cersei and all of these other people are like being shoved down. Their stories are being shoved down because they're women. I think
Hmm.
there is no one in this book, even Odysseus, like he's just kind of there
Yeah.
and like going along with Athena's like what her whims.
Yeah.
This is probably not the best example. And then obviously the Iliad is a bunch of men at war,
Hmm.
so that's a better example, I guess. But what I think is really interesting is like the Madeline Miller Cersei, where she like it's just her story, her origins. There's one that I really like called The Wolf. No.
Oh, the Wolf's Den or something? Is
The
that?
Wolf's Den. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read those yet, but I have them all in my. I have a tag on Libby that's just like a
Yeah.
little Greek vase, and that's where I put all of them. It's just that little emoji.
Um yeah, I'm looking at my Greek
Yeah.
shelf because I have them all on one shelf.
No, I also do. I have a. I think
One.
there's a Bettany Hughes. I think that's who it is. Nonfiction book about who Helen of Troy is, and I'm so excited to read that one.
Okay, so this series by Claire North, not related, um, is about Penelope. So the
Yes.
first one is called Ithaca, and it's about what Penelope does to get through until Odysseus comes home. And then it's like a trilogy, I think. The next one is called House of Odysseus. And then there's a third one that I think just recently came out. And then Stone Blind, I think that's
Is that Natalie
Medusa.
Haynes? Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's literally the Women of Troy.
Mm-hmm. There's a thousand
And there's
ships.
another one.
Yeah.
A Thousand Ships. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't read it, but
Um,
I have it on the shelf. Yeah.
and I think it's really interesting that these are the stories that are being published right now, obviously by women authors and about female characters, and sort of like reclaiming the stories in a very interesting way. But I also think that like they're the most interesting characters. Like
Yeah.
not even just because even more so than just being like, oh well, the women were overlooked. It's like, yeah, but they are in the worst situations most of the time. Like how do you get through that? Which I think is interesting. I don't
Yeah.
remember why I started talking about that, but
Well, no, I'm glad you brought up Penelope because she is in such like a difficult situation. She is held up as like the ideal wife, especially in comparison to Clytemnestra. But something that I again like read on TikTok or something the other day that's like Penelope spends 3 years unweaving this shroud at night, which can imply these like 108 guys don't know how long it takes to make one funeral shroud, which
the
that
men have
one detail.
no idea. I mean that's the most realistic part of the entire book. To be honest.
Which, like, I am really excited to. Obviously, I'm one of the biggest Anne Hathaway fans. Also, a huge Robert Pattinson fan. So I'm very excited to see what he does in this film.
I think, as far as the film, I think the casting for Anne Hathaway, Spider-Man, and Batman, Catwoman. There we go, Catwoman, Spider-Man, and Batman.
Wow!
Um, I think that is like the most perfect casting to me. I don't quite know about any of the others. I
Yeah.
also think that Zendaya will be great as Athena, but does she also have a second role?
I don't know. The only
There
one
are,
I've
like,
heard about.
multiple
Yeah.
people. I think there was one other person that had another role, and I was like, that's so strange. But I do think the casting, like you were saying, Tom Holland, I think he could play that longing really well. I agree. And I also think Robert Pattinson can play, what's his name? Atticus?
Antinous?
Eh,
I know those are all the right letters.
Like the sleazy like leader of these 100 men. I think he could also do that really well. And then I agree, Anne Hathaway can add depth to the character that we don't get in the text.
Yes.
And something that I see often, like you were talking about, most hated
Yeah.
women in Greek mythology, is people hate on her Penelope a lot. And
Literally,
I'm
what
like,
did Penelope do?
because she didn't just tell them no and send them away.
So
And
this
I'm
is
like,
something, yes, continue. Yes,
I
continue.
just think it's so interesting because I found myself, yes, having a little bit of frustration throughout this when we would be in the house and Penelope is just kind of sitting up in her room, but also like understanding the situation. Both of Penelope's parents are pressuring her to get married.
Hmm.
Telemachus, I think, was pressuring her not necessarily to get married, but just to make a decision because he didn't want to make
Yeah.
a decision.
Hmm.
But also, then we find out at the very, very end, unless I missed it in the beginning, we find out at the very end that Penelope, uh, Odysseus, right before he
Hmm.
left,
Yeah.
said to wait a certain amount of time.
Yes.
And if I don't come back by this time, you marry the best man you can find and keep yourself safe,
Yeah.
basically. So I just thought it was interesting that, like, I have seen people, like you said, probably on TikTok, like, or
Yeah.
YouTube or any whatever, complaining about how none of this would have happened or whatever if she had just sent the suitors away. And while I understand the thought in like a modern sense,
Yeah.
like, yeah, sure, you could totally send that. But also, if I had 108 men sitting outside of my apartment,
Yeah.
that's scary.
That I think is like, that's the thing that I think frustrates or like surprises me about the Odyssey as like a book that we read when I was maybe I was in 10th grade, so like 12, 13, 14,
Yeah.
whatever, is the amount of the persistent threat of sexual violence, not only for Penelope, who, like you said, has 108 angry young guys
Yeah.
outside, who are all competing with each other, and Odysseus, who is, and it like I think it really depends on the translation, who is Calypso's sex slave for 7 years.
Yeah.
Same thing happens where it's in mine, at least it was so weird with Cersei of like basically we both get undressed as a means of trusting each other and then we have sex as a means of trusting each other or
Yeah.
establishing trust.
But again, Odysseus was commanded to do that by, was it
Absolutely.
also Athena? Was it also Athena? Or was it Hermes?
Maybe.
I don't, yeah.
But
He
yeah,
was, he
like
was explicitly told
yes.
do that, and also, like, I'll watch your back so that she doesn't hurt you while you're naked or something like
Yeah.
that.
And talk about a power imbalance. Calypso and Cersei are gods. Like literally. The thing that you mentioned that also doesn't get said enough is that Odysseus, I think, says, again, depends on the translation, I think he says once Telemachus grows a beard, then you can marry.
Yes. Yes.
And something that frustrated me in reading it is that I think but the two verbs that she's probably most associated with are like crying and sleeping, and that's kind of all she got. It definitely like reminded me of like, you know, characters in like teen shows and movies of moms who are just like popping Valiums and napping all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I also think like there's a moment where she says, where someone says like she has been like whispering in the ears of a couple suitors, giving them encouragement, which is again like, of course she has to. Like that again is a means of survival, kind of,
Yeah.
to give them a morsel so they'll wait a little bit longer. Yeah.
Yeah, she does the same thing when Telemachus returns with Odysseus as the stranger. I don't remember. Yeah, Telemachus already knows that it's Odysseus, but Penelope doesn't yet. And she is urged. The stranger has urged Penelope to do the competition, to host the
Right.
competition,
With the
and
axes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and in order to like rouse them and make them like willing to participate, she shows face. She comes out like at the
Yes.
top of the stairs. But again, that's also not her idea, because Athena speaks in her mind and she is like literally gazing off in the distance, like depressed. And then Athena speaks in her mind, and suddenly she smiles and looks at her servant and says, I just had a wonderful idea.
Yep.
I will step out and rouse the men with my presence.
Yes. No, you're 100% right. Which, like, when I first read Pride and Prejudice when I was in high school, I did not like it because I had seen it done so many times. Like, I had seen, like, so many adaptations, basically, of it, that it didn't seem fresh to me.
Because
right?
it's such a classic story that you don't realize when you're
like, reading the first one.
The original, yeah.
Exactly. And it was also that thing of, like, even for me in 12th grade, like, the language was a little too dense. We weren't really taking our time with it to really dig into the comedy. It wasn't until I watched Sense and Sensibility, the poster's right beside me, that I, like, really...
I was wondering, I was literally like, I can't tell what that is.
No, that is.
I just see the face. Oh, okay. Yes.
Every
beautiful.
time I record, we've got gigantic Emma Thompson face beside me.
It's just like, I could see, like, the eye. I was like, I don't know who that is.
But, like, so I think with this, it's like, how much am I expecting this ancient thing to have conventions that maybe haven't even been established yet?
Right.
Of, like, a protagonist needing a flaw and, like, needing to... Did Jesus have a flaw? No. I don't think he did. Is there anything you're particularly, like, excited to see in the movie? Or, like, favorite scenes, favorite episodes?
I mean, I'm interested to see how they flesh out, like we spoke about, like how they actually, or if they flesh out the his trials, I guess. What did he call them? The Cyclops, Calypso, Circe. I think I'm most interested for Circe, but also to see how they use Athena, like how she presents herself, because she can show herself as anyone, as anything. She can be invisible to some people and visible to others, like at the same time. And she has so much power that is very ambiguous in the books. So I'll be interested to see how literally they take that on screen.
Yeah.
And then again, probably Penelope and Telemachus, because they've been pushed really heavily in the marketing.
Yeah.
And they're not that prevalent. Like, you get them in the beginning and you get them in the end. And so I'm just interested to see if they get any more depth and how they come across, especially with the actors that they've chosen.
Yeah. I saw something on Reddit that was like, I'm 5 chapters into the Odyssey and Odysseus hasn't even shown up. What's going on? And I'm like, yeah, that's valid. Yeah. It is Telemachus' story, the first 5 books. They even, like, call it sometimes, like, the Telemachine or something. Yeah. But I'm even, like, I'm thinking about the sirens, because, of course, like, that has really become an element of, like, culture, that we know what that means.
You're right.
And when I was reading it, there's a moment after, it happens and stuff where Odysseus is like, well, I had to listen to them. I had to listen to the sirens. And so I went back a couple pages, and Circe says, like, if you want to, if you have to. So why is he saying she commanded it? Dude.
Yeah, I also thought that was interesting. I caught that, maybe for different reasons, but I had remembered it as him defying her instructions. That's for some reason, whether it's like the way it's been mythologized in pop culture or just me misremembering from the one time I read it. I had remembered it as he had disobeyed her order to plug his ears. And so it caught me off guard when she said that, because I don't know why she would say that. Like, why would she give him the option? Yeah. And then, like you said, why would he make it seem like it was an instruction? Like, both of those things, like, why, what did any of this...
Exactly.
Point? And I think it would have been more interesting if it was a defiance.
Yeah.
Like defy the gods, do it.
Exactly.
Come on.
There's so much there of, like, Something I love about reading in general, especially reading things from different times and places, is how much you learn about the culture from the values of the characters, the narrative, the writers. So with the Iliad and the Odyssey, like one of the biggest cultural touchstones that we understand about ancient Greece is the like all importance of hospitality. The with Helen, the big thing is that like Paris is a visitor at her home and defies all of this, and that the suitors in Ithaca are visitors, so they can't turn them out. They can't be rude to guests. The other thing with that, which like that, fine, I'm fine with that. Sounds nice, frankly. But the other thing is how often they describe Odysseus as wise, cunning. And obviously he's like one of the biggest heroes ever celebrated. Yeah. And he's also a filthy liar. Yeah. So like and like you were saying, he doesn't he comes up with the Trojan horse, but that's pretty cowardly, actually. He doesn't seem like he's in the front lines being really brave. So why is he... Again, it's like a cultural heroic difference of what we value.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because to go back to the Trojan horse, because I'm really interested also to see how they talk about it in the adaptation, because obviously it's a big part of the adaptation, but I was like, that's the wrong book.
Well, and it's not in the Iliad either.
People speak, and Odysseus speaks of himself in disguise as him being the genius behind the Trojan horse. Yes. And so there is like a tiny little recap.
Yeah.
And then allusions to it. But it's not like, even just from the trailer of the movie, I'm like, that's
kind of as much as we get. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I also thought was interesting is that the only reason that the Trojan horse worked was because he got lucky. Because they built the horse, got them through the gates. That's great. But the people, from what I remember, is the people of Troy wanted to dismantle it. They wanted to burn it, and they believed there were people inside.
Yeah.
And just enough people were spooked by Poseidon that they put it on. It was Poseidon, right? That they took it to his temple.
That would make sense because horse is his.
So they were scared enough of Poseidon that they took it and left it on his temple, and they were going to destroy it the next morning. He just was lucky enough that there was like a priest there or something. So it wasn't necessarily even that he got him through the gates, but he just kind of lucked out that it worked out as well as it did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And the point of it is not... look how this guy got lucky. It is, look how smart this guy is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are portions of ancient texts that are lost, or, there's extra books of the Iliad that are out there or whatever. Even in mine, there's like a moment where Odysseus and Penelope reunite and go to bed, and there's a footnote that's like, sometimes some translations end here and don't include like the 24th book or whatever. Oh. So... what I think is interesting is then, it's again this, cultural assumption of, well, I don't need to tell you guys all about the Trojan horse. We all know this. Right. What was interesting to me is when they're with the Cyclops, they never say, all of these people only have one eye. they are, the Cyclops' eye. They're, but they're never by the way, they only have one. It is this thing, I guess, of, how if we say unicorn, it's yeah, I know what that looks like. Yeah. But that really surprised me. I was waiting for it. Yeah.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. But they are kind of just, at least in this translation, they're just described as giants, basically.
Exactly. And there's some stuff about their social mechanisms of they don't have government and they don't talk to each other. But nothing really about the whole eye thing. It's kind of a big deal to me.
It's a very important detail. Yeah. I thought it was funny when I was reading it. Not funny, but I was annoyed at how kind of mean Odysseus was to the Cyclops. And I was like, okay, he ate your men. I get it, but that's kind of his nature, right? But then the Cyclops, he backtracks and he's like, well, wait, I'm sorry, you are God blessed. Like, hold on, I don't remember exactly what he says, but he tries to like be hospitable. And Odysseus is kind of like, F you, and then stabs him in the eye.
Yep.
And then that is like, he didn't have to be that mean.
I know. But that
I just
passage,
was like reading it
yeah.
and I was like, why are you going so hard? Like, this is
Yeah.
kind of intense.
Try
Like,
being nice. He might let you out.
like, it could just be a lot easier. He could give your boat a little push. You didn't have to
Yeah.
risk all the men's lives by continuing to taunt him, because that's how he got the boat out, right? Was he
Yeah.
taunted the Cyclops again and had him throw stones. But it's like, okay, you could have just chilled
Yeah.
out a little bit.
What was
Yeah.
interesting to me about that, so with the whole Iliad, I was surprised by how violent and gory and descriptive it was about the violence in the Iliad. So I think with the Odyssey, that particular section with the Cyclops to me was very like engaging and scary, and like what you do have to like watch him every day eat one of your friends,
Yeah.
and how do we decide who he's gonna eat, and
Yeah.
all of this that I think was very effective. And yet like it isn't a retelling, it is like what's actually happening is Odysseus is like just kind of standing up. And I read some academia that was like, well, that like adds layers. It's like, so he's, you know, telling it first person and he can describe how he felt and all of this stuff. And I'm like, I'm a big fan of first person, but this is literally telling instead of showing.
Also, coming from Odysseus, like we said, like, he's such a liar. Like,
Yeah.
he's such an awful liar that, like, how do you know, like, what parts to believe and what parts are like, how do you know that he was so mean to the Cyclops in the end? How do you know that he didn't just like go up there and stab the guy in the eye, and like
That was the whole thing.
that was the whole thing, and he lost some men because he lost some men because he clearly doesn't care about them? Like, it's interesting and frustrating, or it was frustrating to me in those sections where that was how it was happening and how he was retelling, because I was just like, I don't believe you, and you're not being very engaging. Like, you're just kind of like you said, like, you're just telling.
There's even a moment where he's like, and then we got to this person's house and the dinner was so delicious we had to stay there for 3 months. And it's like, well, then I don't believe that you're actually the most tortured person in the world. And I don't believe that you love your wife that much. And I don't believe. And it's like, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with that. One thing I did like, however, although I don't know like why it is necessary, because I don't think they like make a meal of it as a character development moment, I like how he goes back to Ithaca and Athena says like, you have to go in and be abused and cursed at and have stuff thrown at you, and you have to suffer all of these indignities in silence. I liked that, but I don't think it really I don't think it changed
him. Purpose, though.
Exactly.
Accomplished. It was interesting because you're like, wow, all these people suck.
These people suck, yeah.
And he's their leader. So what does that say about him, too?
Exactly.
But also, like, yes, I agree. That was interesting. And the most interesting parts were, you know, that and him pretending to be the stranger, the old man, and being, like, abused by all of the suitors. But to what end? Because...
Exactly.
Why did he have to wait? Like, I understand to an extent the the competition and making a show of it, but he spoke with Telemachus like saying, no, we have to wait, but I never understood like what they were necessarily waiting for.
Yeah, the reason is because someone told me to, rather than a more satisfying thing. Yeah,
it's not him being cunning, it's him following orders, like not even choosing to follow orders.
Yeah.
Like, it's in his brain. Like, he's not even like, oh, yeah, I'm going to follow this person because of XYZ, whatever.
I do think there's something interesting about, again, like, that they just don't go into enough, which is that, like, all of these suitors are, like, the sons of the big men of Ithaca who, like, have either gone to war with Odysseus or have gotten too old or something. So it is, like, more or less like Telemachus's generation that
Hmm.
is pursuing her, and it's all these guys who haven't been to war and haven't proved themselves.
Yeah.
And what else is interesting is that Odysseus, it's like four guys who really take them all down. It's Odysseus, Telemachus, and then two servants. And I think, well, that's an interesting thing of like, it's, you know, the servants and the blue collar workers taking down the rich
Also,
boys.
like very old servants because they were servants from
Yes.
like I think they like were the ones that raised Odysseus,
That or like were
right?
raised with
Or
him.
with him. It might have
Yeah.
been with him. And then the nurse
Hmm.
that was helping Penelope, she did raise Odysseus.
Yes.
No, she raised yes,
Yes, I
Odysseus.
think so. Yeah.
Um, so it's like these are really old. Like Odysseus is already really old for
Yeah.
like the time.
Yeah.
Really old people. And it's like, yes, Athena's helping. Zeus has his lightning bolt that helps very much at the end.
Hmm.
But this whole thing about Telemachus and Odysseus not being able to take on 108 men, but realistically, they did. Because how
Yeah.
much help are the other two old servants?
Yeah.
Like they're not skilled warriors. They are assisting, right? So again, what are you waiting for? Like, are you what?
Exactly. Like, that is sort of the question of the whole thing. It's not, why is this so hard? It's that, what are you waiting for, dude? I
He's
don't
waiting
think
for
it
someone to tell him what to do.
doesn't seem very cunning to me.
He even asked Telemachus what to do because he doesn't want to make
Hmm.
the decision.
Yeah.
And then Telemachus is like, "No, I'm gonna follow you."
Yeah. Have you
I,
read the Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood? I have not.
I have not. I think I have it somewhere, but I haven't.
Do we even know if it's like a retelling expansion or like a retelling 21st century?
Okay, the Penelopiad is a novella by Margaret Atwood that retells the story of Homer's Odyssey from the perspective of Penelope and her 12 hanged maids who serve as a Greek
Oh.
chorus.
Oh,
It's a
good.
feminist retelling. See, this is what's interesting. It's like it's a feminist retelling that gives voice to the often silenced characters.
Hmm.
And it's like, but everyone's silenced.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. What's interesting to me is that, and going back to like why Penelope was so tortured and why she didn't give in to the suitors or just send them away, even her handmaids were selling her out.
Yeah.
They were the ones who told the dudes that she was unraveling, and they snuck up on her in the middle of the night and
Yeah.
caught her unraveling the tapestry. Like the nursemaid was the only one who was like for sure loyal, and she
Hmm.
said, "I can point out the rest of the people, but I think that there were only a few."
Yeah. I think
Because,
it was
yeah,
like
because
12.
Odysseus like
Yeah.
hanged 12 of them
Brutally.
very, very violently. Yes. So I think that just adds another layer that's like not spoken about. Like it's like
Mhm.
one line where it's like Odysseus comes in, he's like, I'm just gonna kill everybody. How awful to be so betrayed by literally everyone. You're being betrayed by your parents who are telling you to remarry when you're trying to like stay
Mhm.
strong. You're being betrayed by your son who
Yes.
is going to other countries and not telling you. You're being betrayed by your handmaids, not only in not telling you where your son went, but also they're sleeping with the suitors who are courting you.
Yeah. Yeah, I just sort of like I don't know what to make of it, which is also sort of like maybe why we keep coming back to it. I don't know.
I think we said the same thing about Jane Eyre.
Hmm. That's true. That's
We're
true.
like,
Mm, that's true. I feel like besides like looking at specific lines, which we don't need to do, I think that's all my notes. Is there anything you know you wanted to talk about that we have not covered?
I don't think so. I'm really curious about the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll definitely have to talk about it once we've both seen it because I am fascinated to see what they do with it.
Yeah.
I think the story is really interesting, but I was surprised at how bored I was and how
Yes.
like disappointed I was compared to. And I knew, like I said, I knew that I preferred the Iliad since the first time I read it, but I didn't remember, and I haven't reread the Iliad in many years anyway, but so it could be the same. Like if I reread it, I
Yeah.
could be like, oh, it's a little bit more boring than I remember. I don't think it will be, but I was surprised, and I think it's interesting that I'm interested to see why Nolan chose to do the Odyssey and
Yeah.
just do the Odyssey and not do both or start with the Iliad. I'm curious about that. But as far as, yeah, I think we hit everything because it's not really something that we can go line by
No.
line. Like,
No. Have you
yeah,
seen
yeah.
The Return with Ray Fiennes?
Just about to ask you about that. I haven't
I
seen it.
I saw like the beginning and I was bored.
No! Oh no! I was so excited because I saw this other creator does like video essays on YouTube. I don't remember
Mhm.
her name, but she was saying basically that The Return is like the most faithful adaptation that she's
Really?
found for like a film adaptation. And I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited
Yeah.
because love Ray Fiennes.
Hmm.
Um,
Love Juliette Binoche. Yeah. Maybe
yes.
that's what we both have to do tonight
Oh,
is give it a try.
yeah, that
Maybe.
would be great. That would be
Maybe.
pretty great.
At
Yeah,
least
that's
this
a good
week.
idea. I wonder if
Yeah.
it's streaming anywhere. I wonder
It
if it's
might be on
streaming.
Paramount, I think. But I
You
guess.
didn't like it.
Yeah, I was a bit bored,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
maybe it was
It's a
the
fresh reread.
exactly.
There
Give
you
it another
go.
try. Final question. Would you consider it required reading?
I think the Iliad and the Odyssey together are required reading. I
Hmm.
think to understand where, if you're like into fantasy and mythology and storytelling, right? Maybe not necessarily storytelling because I don't like, even though he is like the original like hero's journey, right?
I
I
don't know
still
about
don't
it.
think
Yeah.
that like that's how it's presented, but I don't think that that's accurate. So maybe not. But if you're interested in like fantasy, mythology, anything like that, I do think that it is required to understand where a lot of the dynamics come from. But I think that it's mostly the Iliad.
Yeah.
Like if you just read the Iliad, I think you'd be
Yeah,
fine.
okay. Yeah. I think for me, like, engaging with Greek mythology is required,
Yeah.
but I also think, like, there's that, it's like the quintessential, there's like the Edith Hamilton, where it's like kind of all of the different
Hmm.
myths in a very approachable way.
Yeah.
I think do that. I
Yeah.
think you don't need to climb this gigantic hurdle
Yeah,
of.
kind of like in the fairy tale like aspect, like you don't
Exactly.
necessarily have to read the original like the Grimms, but like engaging in some parts of it to understand how we've gotten to where we are
Yeah,
is important.
a
So
hundred
not
percent.
necessarily like everything. Maybe you don't have to read Homer, but maybe you read the Three Theban plays or maybe
Yeah,
something, you know. But yeah, engaging. Same with Shakespeare, like engaging with that, like you said, to
yeah,
understand how we got to where we are now is more
exactly.
important than like a specific text,
Yeah.
probably. That's what I would say.
I 100% agree. Is there anything you'd like to plug where you can be found?
I am that bookish witch on all platforms, and sometimes I post.
Nice. Perfect.
Yeah,
And did we do this for Jane Eyre where we read the last line?
I think we did. I think,
Okay.
yeah, that was a new thing for you.
But this will be very fun because
Wait,
we'll have two different
we
versions.
each read it. Hold on, let me find.
Yes. Yeah, mine is two sentences.
Okay,
Wait.
yeah, we can do that as well.
Odysseus obeyed her, and his heart rejoiced. Then Pallas Athene, daughter of Aegis-bearing Zeus, still using Mentor's form and voice for her disguise, established peace between the two sides. The end.
That's fascinating.
Yours?
He was glad to obey her. Then Athena made the warring sides swear solemn oaths of peace for future times, still in her guise as mentor.
Fascinating.
Right? That's so interesting to me. Something that's been really interesting to me about the Emily Wilson translation, in addition to all of the other fluffing that other translators do, she's the only translator that is the exact same number of lines, and each line is also, I believe each line is also the same, like has the same cadence and rhythm. So it
Right.
not only is the same length, but it follows the same speaking pattern because it's a verbal
Yeah.
tradition. which I think is important. So that's so interesting. Those are very different.
Oh.
I don't want to reread it again, but I kind of want to go line by line on some
I
things.
know, and compare with a book.
Wait,
Maybe we do that.
pick
maybe we
out
do
a
that.
few scenes.
Just a few.
Okay, we're gonna watch The Return. We're gonna watch the new Nolan, and we're gonna pick out some scenes, and we're gonna go line by
Compare.
line.
That's it.
Fascinating. I
That
love
will
that.
be
Okay,
the end of the episode. And listeners, you have to do it too. You have homework.
join us.
Join us.